Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the DawgLand podcast. It is NFL Scouting Combine Week, essentially the start of the offseason because the illegal tampering starts before the legal tampering starts in a couple weeks. I am Jackson McCurry, and joining me today is none other than DawgLand contributor Jack Duffin. Jack, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. We're getting closer. Once we get the combine in, that's when I'll start doing the behind the scenes data and we start building draft boards and all the other funky stuff. So, it's an exciting time.
Yes, it really is because, we're going to start hearing more rumors about free agency, more trade rumors. And then, of course, we start getting, is it Math Bomb? He starts putting together those relative athletic score boards, and those are always exciting just to see like who are the freak athletes of this draft class. And we'll get some answers to that here in the next coming days and weeks, or next coming days and weeks too, essentially, because the prospects will be hitting the field this week for their athletic drills. So that's going to be something very exciting to watch. Before we get to some of the Browns news, Jack, is there anything like any position groups you are looking forward to watching this week at the Scouting Combine, if you watch at all? I don't know what access you have over in the United Kingdom to watching the Scouting Combine.
So I've got NFL Game Pass, so I can watch it all. Am I going to watch any of it? No. No, I'm not.
You don't love the underwear Olympics stuff?
No, the underwear Olympics just doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. Sorry, guys. It's not my thing. I'm just waiting for Math Bomb to start tweeting, because when he starts tweeting, I start caring. So he's going to crunch all the numbers and what Math Bomb does. And if you're interested in the draft, you have to follow that guy. I would say that is the number one follow around the draft, this combine in particular, where he'll just take the size data and look at how athletic is someone for that size, build, and that position. And all of that information is incredibly important. And the Browns heavily rely on it. I've tweeted out some data sets. It's stuff that really, really matters. It will factor into my big board that I did last year, and I'll do again this year. Even more detail into that. So we're adding height and weight, which is going to spew out some interesting information.
Yeah, I've seen sneak peeks of it already, because obviously, as running the DawgLand, Jack fills me on some stuff he's working on. It's some great stuff. Very, very, very detailed, as he always does. So definitely looking forward to that once it comes out here in the next few weeks as we inch closer to the draft. We got some Browns news over the last week, and me and Anthony talked about Jarvis Landry, the situation there. Seems like it's going to come to a head this week at the Combine. His agency representatives are meeting with the Browns. Jack, your thoughts on Landry sounding off on those series of tweets last week, and how do you see this playing out with the Browns as we inch closer towards free agency?
Yeah, I don't think he needed to use as many characters to say, "Hey, Andrew Berry, cut me now," because that was all it was, and I can't blame him. He wants to be a free agent, and if he's a free agent now, it's earlier in the season, he can go out and sign them with any team pre-free agency. So it puts him in an advantageous position. It makes sense for both sides. It's coming to an end, and the two parties can go their way, and hopefully we can upgrade to wide receivers that fit our personnel package. He can go somewhere that plays a lot more 11, and good luck to him. Hopefully he gets his money, because I'm all for all these dudes getting a massive bag. I just don't want them to get a massive bag in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, we all kind of knew that this was coming like this offseason. We just didn't expect Jarvis to go off and sound off on Twitter. I asked Anthony this on the last episode, and I want to see if you agree or disagree. When he said that, he never complained about his injury, do you think that was a shot at Baker?
Oh, I thought it was a bit bitchy.
Yeah.
I definitely got that vibe.
It was a cheap shot, because it was just like, you never heard me complain about my injury. He goes, I just kept working to make sure I was ready for game day. And I was like, damn, that was an impartial. Yeah, that was definitely an impartial shot at Baker. But I mean, who knows? Like, we'll never know. I don't think the behind the scenes drama between Baker and Odell, maybe even Jarvis, was involved. So definitely unfortunate that it's come to this. Jarvis we appreciate what he's done on the field, what he did off the field for the team, but it's definitely looking like both sides are going to move on. And then we see what happens with the wide receiver position next here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, this is the one. It's going to be thoroughly exciting. We had the first off season that was all about the O-line. We had the second off season, which was all about, what did you focus on the second season?
Coverage.
Now you're there. Yep, it was all around the coverage. I just had an absolute mind blank. And this is all about the wide receiver. Next year, it's probably all about the quarterback. Oh.
Yes, the quarterback position, which touch on that real quick, because the Athletic reported a number of teams that are looking at the trade market, and the Browns weren't mentioned. And we just talked about this in a Twitter space that we were in right before we jumped in to record. The Browns weren't mentioned. It just seems like at this point it's ride and die with 6 for 2022. And then the future is definitely up in the air, depending on how Baker comes back and how he performs.
Yeah, there's not the dudes out there, and any of these new head coaches taking a job, you're not going to want to trade away your quarterback, because that's potentially 1 and done, 2 and done, and then the next guy gets to draft their quarterback they want. It's too risky for you to do. So you're not taking the job if you didn't believe in that guy. You've got a few older vets retiring, and those younger guys aren't quite there yet. And it's not a rich class for you to get inspired by. So, yeah, don't see the potential merry-go-round that others are talking about. You're going to get Jimmy G, we know, is probably the only one that's set to hit the market. Everyone else is speculation at that point. Jimmy G's going.
Schefter kind of fanned those flames last week on a podcast. He said it sounds like Trey Lance isn't ready. So it's not like guaranteed Garoppolo is going to be on the move, which doesn't bode well for Trey Lance if you think about it. Because if he's not ready after sitting behind and learning the system and getting, sprinkled in, it just kind of makes you wonder, like, did the 49ers make a mistake? Should they have drafted Mac Jones ultimately? But we'll never know. We'll see how that shakes out. But, back to the Browns news, obviously, Landry was the big thing. And then on Saturday, Jack Conklin reworks his deal, because I felt like I got called out by Duffin and Ian on the Paul Brown podcast, because I've said restructure a lot, but Jack Conklin reworked the final year of his contract, helped him out with some guaranteed money, helped the Browns out with some cap space, creating more. Jack, are you shocked that the Browns actually did this with Conklin? Because we had talked about it at times that he could have been a roster cut later on in the off season.
Yeah. So it's a really weird one. So it works really well for both sides, but it effectively says from Conklin's side, there's still some injury concerns, because if he was fully healthy, he wouldn't feel like he has to risk $4 million to tie up the other 8. And it says from the Brown sides, they're concerned, but not as concerned as I thought they were, because I thought there would be a lot more concern on their side. So everything's pointing towards he should be fine for the season. Yeah, he might go down mid-season. If he does, fine. But it allows them, they're going to invest in a free agent. That's just one thing you can pull from it. Because Hudson might, by the end of camp, look good. I do not believe on the first, the middle of March, they're going to go, Hudson is great to be our number 3 offensive tackle this year. So expect somebody, and hey, if they've got too many good dudes, they can trade someone at a later point. And that could be the other one. The way this deal's structured and been reported so far is it's just guaranteed base salary. That is still tradable. If something crazy situation happens and tackle falls into their lap, they're not ruled out from taking tackle anywhere in the draft because of this, but it's unlikely at this point. So I would write in pen Jack Conklin's name.
Yeah, I definitely would too. It's funny you mentioned trade, because if they do trade him, it's far less costly if they were to just flat out cut him. Because I heard you and Ian talking about it. We would have to eat $6 million of cap space and take a $17 million dead cap hit if we had to cut him. If we traded him, we saved $2 million but we take a $9 million dead cap hit this year. So something to weigh, possibility if they just say, hey, if the team calls and says, hey, we'll take Conklin off your hands, could be something to watch. But it's funny that they reworked this deal too. If he comes back and is back at all pro form, is it possible we still give him another contract extension?
So I think there's two factors that look into that. So if you have a veteran QB, you're probably only going to have two veterans on the O-line on big money. We're not talking a veteran like Chris Hubbard in the mix. We're talking proper big veteran deals. And they've tied up both guards. So you've got two dynamics here. One is they draft a quarterback in a year's time and they go, hey, half the saving we're going to get from whoever they draft in the first round, we'll give that to Jack Conklin and give that rookie a third stud on the O-line. And then the other option is they can, maybe Teller doesn't work out. And after Teller got paid, Teller wasn't playing like he had played the year and a half before that. He wasn't the guy that, if he finishes the season, I'm not sure they potentially extend him. So that's a really interesting one to keep an eye on because he's definitely probably going to be here the whole of next year. And then maybe traded the year after. And that could be one, or they just look to keep him for 2 and then they'll cut him and move on. But yeah, if Conklin balls out and they feel really good about the health, that is potentially one where they could pay him. Potentially he might be happy signing a deal which has this sort of escalator in it for playing time. But no, I wouldn't say no, but I would say it's unlikely that he's going to be here long term.
And it's funny you bring that up about Wyatt Teller not performing well. Nobody really talked about that. Like, he had some spectacular blocks down the stretch, but he did not grade out well. I think Jake Burns was the only one that mentioned it that, like, I took notice, like, yeah, Teller hasn't really been playing all that well. Yeah, he had some unbelievable, like, pancakes, but he just didn't grade out well. That's something to definitely watch. It's just, people are so like enthralled with some of the things he's done off the field, like carrying a alligator on his back. What was the recent thing? His wife, I guess, said that Wyatt was like tossing grills like over his shoulder. It's like, yeah, he's really strong, dude, but like, A, we don't want him to get hurt doing that silly stuff. And B, like, we paid you like an all-pro guard. You need to play like an all-pro guard. So hopefully it was just, maybe he had an injury that he played through and hopefully he bounces back. But like, it's definitely something to watch going forward.
Yeah, if we sort of just look, I'm just going to pull up weeks 10 through to week 18. I'm not sure exactly when he got paid, but I'm going to throw those in there and let's just look at PFF. Min snaps 20%, just so we get a decent sample. That's 40. That's 50 guards. Or have we got too many in here? That's 83 guards in the list. So let's jump that up to say 50% snaps. We get 62 in the list. And let's find out where Teller ranks. Teller ranks joint 21st. So he wasn't playing bad in that second half of the season, but Joel Bitonio was a clear number one. We're talking like miles ahead of everyone else. Zach Martin's the only guy in the same realm. And just on the grading scale, Joel Bitonio got a 96.4. Third place is 82.4. So we're talking a whole like 15 points. And there's a bigger gap between Joel Bitonio and third than there is between third and 21st, where Wyatt Teller is. That's how insane Joel Bitonio was. So I just think it's one where we have to keep an eye on that. Because if he plays like that for the whole of next season, we're going to be discussing how we get out of Teller's deal rather than anything else.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Another player that could be looking at a new deal is David Njoku. He's obviously going to be a free agent here in the next couple of weeks. We think. Only Mary Kay dropped an interesting nugget on Sunday in her article on Cleveland.com, where she said the Browns were willing to pay David Njoku in the double digits, millions, that he we're expecting he's now going to get on the open market. I had brought this up last week with Anthony when we talked, and we were talking about the franchise tag, and we had said, who would we rather tag, Njoku or Clowney? Anthony said Clowney. I said Njoku. And the reason I started thinking about this more and more was last week, Carolina extended Ian Thomas, who hasn't had over 350 receiving yards in his career yet, gave him like $5.8 million per year on a 3-year deal. And I thought, if he's getting that, Njoku's going to get paid some serious money. Now it looks like the Browns are still trying to hammer out a long-term deal with him, but the reports are now coming out that he might get the franchise tag, which isn't surprising at this point. But it's good to know that the Browns still believe in David Njoku. They definitely want him back, according to reports, and they're willing to pay him like he's one of the top tight ends and do so.
Yeah, if I had to rank in order, I'd say the most likely scenario is he gets the tag. Second most likely scenario is actually a free agent. And I think working out an extension comes third on that list. I just struggle to see a route where they're going to come to a number structure and sort of something that works for both parties. It just seems like a no-brainer. So I expect him to get the tag, and if he's not getting the tag, it might be one of those where they go, hey, go find out in the market and go find your value and come back. I still just think it's intriguing to transition tag him. I think you save a little bit of money, and if you're not 100% of like, we have to bring this dude back, it's the way to do it, because he might get an offer out there in the market when you go, hey, we were actually going to pay him like $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million a year more than that. Yeah, we'll match that deal, and then you bring him back. And if you're not that married to him, you can let him go. And lots of people are getting caught up in they see the small sample of what he's done in the receiving game, and they're like, yeah, we'll just give him more targets. This dude couldn't beat out Austin Hooper. And that is the part that just worries me. Because if he can't beat Austin Hooper, what's wrong? It's not Austin Hooper's a bad player, but he's not in the same sort of athletic, sort of freaky nature. Does he not have the confidence of Baker Mayfield? Could easily be the case. We just don't know.
Yeah, we definitely don't know that. It does worry me to a degree. And I've actually said this the last couple of years. I wonder about his work ethic. Like, the dude works his tail off in the gym. I just wonder how much does he work on the field, on the practice field, because if he's not, getting the ball more than Austin Hooper, that just makes you wonder, A, does Baker trust him? B, does the coaching staff trust him? Now, obviously the front office believes in him. The fact that they're still talking about trying to sign him to a long-term deal, the fact that they're debating giving him the franchise tag, like, they obviously see it. Maybe they just think, maybe if we pay him, maybe Njoku will finally just be the tight end we've expected him to be. Maybe that's all it takes, is just a commitment from the Browns, and then Njoku starts playing out of his mind. I mean, who knows? I mean, I still have faith that this dude's going to be one of the top tight ends in the league, and maybe if we pay him like one, maybe he'll eventually become one.
And it's why I'm on the whole bringing OJ Howard as well thing, because if you tag him and bring in OJ Howard, hey, if one of the two dudes work out, well, I'll pay that dude. If both of them work out, hey, I'll find out a way to pay him. Because, hey, we'll probably have quite a lot of youth movement at the wide receiver. He can move some of that money around. But yeah, give me as many options. And I think that's just a smart trend. I've spoke before about Marcus May and John Johnson. Set yourself up for these scenarios where you go, hey, we've got two high upside guys. Whichever one works out, we'll pay. Both work out, we'll make a difficult decision, or both, if we can afford to take the money out of somewhere else. And if neither work out, hey, we've had two genuinely great shots at it. Not, we'll take one shot, this doesn't work out right, we'll take another shot in the next year and then another shot. If you can set yourself up to have two shots in one go, the upside's massive. And pairing two freakish tight ends when we're likely to have a weak wide receiver core, especially in the first half of next year, while some youngsters develop, go for it.
Without a doubt. So if they do tag Njoku like we're expecting at this point, we still got a little bit over a week before the tag deadline. if they tag him or if they hammer out a long-term deal, it's safe to say Austin Hooper is probably going to get released shortly after. Even if they tag him, I still think they're going to end up releasing Austin Hooper at that point.
Yeah, it's as long as there's some semi-level of confidence in Bryant, then he'll be gone. Yeah, I don't have a feeling that there's sort of no trust in Harrison Bryant. So as long as they're happy with him potentially being a tight end 2, which I think he can do, then roll with it.
Yeah, I think they've been very confident in Bryant as the tight end 3. And if they want to give him more, I think he'll definitely answer the bell for that. He's definitely shown some consistency in his first 2 seasons. You mentioned OJ Howard, and this will transition to the article you wrote for the DawgLand on Sunday, where you listed off, I think, 16 free agents that you think could be, we'll call them in the bargain bin of free agency, the guys that you think the Browns could sign for under $5 million per year. It's a great article over at the DawgLand.com. Definitely go check it out. Jack, like you mentioned, you target wide receivers, you mentioned OJ Howard, and then you focus on some groups that, you know, A, we have some depth issues, or B, just guys that we need to fill a position group. Like you mentioned D tackle, you mentioned linebacker, you mentioned safety. Like it's very in-depth as always, as you do with your articles. Like talk about some of the names here that you would be very interested in the Browns signing and could be a steal for them in due time.
Yeah, so we'll start with defensive tackle, just because I think if there's a position where we know the Browns are going to bring in dudes, have a history of bringing in dudes, and they don't want to spend for the premium, because we got the Harrison Phillips, the Fatou Kassi, the DJ Jones, the BJ Hill. If they want to make a splash, they can go make a splash, but gut says they might not. It's sort of where they've been as a front office. So if you were looking to bring in some guys, we'll run through. Hey, I haven't got the list up in front of me, but I'm going to be bold here. I'm going to go, first name is Al Woods out of Seattle. A veteran, so a little bit older than they might ideally like, but bringing a dude that sat out 2020, had a really good 2021. So many younger players that I'm happy to have some old dude in there that's going to turn around, probably tell Togiai and Elliott they need to buck up or they're out the league. He's only probably going to be $2 million. But that's the sort of move that I like, that because if you come in and you tell him, hey, this is your job and we need you to do it, he's going to understand that and he's going to do it. So really, really sort of smart ad if he's happy to relocate. Because if we're offering 2 and say Seattle offers 1.8, with those older players, they're not relocating it. I don't know if he's got a family, but they're not relocating the whole family and everything for $200K. It's not the game-changing amount that it would be to either of us two. Hey, Claude the dog, we're moving to America. Someone's going to give you $200K extra. Then sort of the one on the list that's a little bit of money here, and that's Tim Settle. So pass rushing specialist from Washington. And if you're looking at a prime candidate to chase, find someone that's buried on a depth chart. And they're not buried because they're not good. They're buried because there's just so much talent. If you're not a first rounder, you don't start on the Washington D-line. So Tim Settle, great at pass rushing, not so great against the run. And that could be a problem for them. But hey, if it's 1 out of 4 dudes, I'm happy to throw that in the mix. Either those two guys sort of pique an interest for you?
Tim Settle definitely does. The more that I've looked at him, the more I've read up on him. Like he's definitely one. And you mentioned it. He's coming from the Commanders' defensive line, which is so strong. It's probably one of, if not the best in the league. You try to find guys on that team that aren't getting enough playing time just because there's so much talent in that position group. Settle is definitely a name we can watch, and with defensive tackle being a glaring hole in this roster, throwing money at him would not be a bad thing in my eyes.
Yeah. Next, we know they love former first-round picks. If there's one thing they love, it's former first-round picks on the D-line. We've had Clowney, we've had Takk McKinley, and the next guy up is Taven Bryan. From the Jaguars, two good to great years coming into the league, and then two not so great years. Take that punt, bring that dude in, and see what he's got. I just think it's a smart move, and yeah, reclamation project comes in, and you're saying to that guy, hey, stand next to Myles Garrett, and it'll make you look good. It's not a hard sell.
No, not at all. I mean, you look back, even though this was the Dorsey year, but Brashad Perriman, Greg Robinson, former first round picks you mentioned, Clowney, Takk McKinley, Malik McDowell, I think he was a second round pick, but the Browns are always willing to take chances on talented guys that flamed out in their previous spots. And Taven Bryan would be no exception. Like you said, he's had a good couple years, had a couple inconsistent years, get a fresh start out of Jacksonville on a team that's up and coming like Cleveland. Could be a low risk, high reward situation for the Browns.
Yeah. Next up, we get a guy that is just a meh guy that I'd bring in and see what he can do. And that's Zach Kerr out the 49ers. That's another sort of loaded position room area there for them. But I just think he should be interesting and can throw him in the mix. Before we get to a full-on return of a certain individual, who's the fifth out of the six names on the list?
A guy that I loved during his draft process, I think it was 2019, Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle.
Yes. And that's purely one that the medical team might still say no. More medical information might have come to light and his agents can peddle that round. That the Browns now go, hey, we don't mind drafting him. So it's one that, yeah, if the health checks out, get that dude in. You might not want to bring in him and Settle. It's more of an either and or because they are more pass rusher guys. I don't know how he's played when he's been in the league in terms of pass rush versus run stuffing, but he definitely during the draft process sort of really piqued interest. Or you could just go really pass rush heavy and go, hey, we don't care about the run. With Tim Settle at 1 tech and Hurst at 3 tech, it'd be pretty juicy. And the next up is if you want a 1 tech who's going to come in, do a job and do that job really well, bring the man back, bring home Danny Shelton. Is he going to rush the passer? No. Is he going to plug a gap and stop the run? Yes, he is. And I think it'd be a really smart move to go, hey, come here, play 20% of the snaps. You're never going to be out there on third down unless it's a 3rd and 1, and do your job. And he will come back and do it. So these dudes are all really, really cheap. We're talking Tim Settle is the only one going to get more than $2 million. Taven Bryan potentially. I don't know what his market's set to be, but all the other guys, you're looking really, really cheap, and bring them in and let them fight out.
Yeah, Danny Shelton would be an interesting one. I always wonder, like, guys that didn't work out and, was drafted by one regime, another regime shipped them out the door. Like, would they ever be open to coming back to their original team? Like, I don't recall any specifically, especially with Cleveland, but if Shelton would come back, like, he would be perfect because we need that run stopper inside when we're going up against some of these tough backs in the AFC North and around the league in general. But Shelton would be a good one. I love the idea of Maurice Hurst. Like, last year, he didn't play much for San Francisco, but you look back to his first 3 years in the league with the Raiders, graded out very well in pass rush, not too bad in run defense. He was average, but overall he graded out pretty well for a guy that they was a 5th round pick, was a projected 1st round pick before the heart issue. And it's 3 years in Vegas, 11 pressures his rookie year. His second year, he had 38, including 4 sacks and 4 QB hits. And then his 2020, he had 11 pressures and a sack again. So this is a guy inside. You line him up with a Myles Garrett and whoever else we get opposite him, whether it's Clowney or another free agent addition. The possibilities of getting after the quarterback would be endless. Adding Maurice Hurst to the mix.
I think it's really exciting, and hopefully we can bring back a dude like Sheldon Day in there.
Yes.
You've got Tommy Togiai that's going to compete to hopefully make the roster, but nothing exact. Then you've also got Jordan Elliott that's probably not going to make the roster. but I think we could easily be talking about 5-6 dudes again. And then we're letting them battle it out and see what happens. Because if you only end up giving Tim Settle 4 million and everyone else is like 1.5 million, they know they've got a great opportunity, not just to make a roster, but go, actually, hey, if I have a really good camp, I could be starting in this defensive tackle rotation. So it offers the opportunity to guys. So I just see them adding lots of bodies again. I don't think it's one they're going to draft. I think they've just had their hand burnt so many times that they're like, hey, we'll give it a year off, bring in some vets, and then let's see if a couple of the vets can stick. Because if they were running it back and Malik McDowell was still no issue there, and they had Sheldon Day, and they could then be like, actually, we could work with those two higher up, bring in one guy and then maybe draft one, and we'll sort of see where it shakes out. But if you're rebuilding a room, it just makes sense to start in free agency, but start cheap.
Yeah, definitely. I think they do need to take a year to like maybe reevaluate how they evaluate the defensive tackle position, because, you know, the Jordan Elliott pick didn't work out the way we thought it would. And Tommy Togiai is still to be determined. Maybe they need to refocus their approach about what they're looking for in the defensive tackles. Maybe approach it like they do with the linebacker room. Find guys that are specific in one role and build it that way. Like you mentioned, if they go after a Settle or Maurice Hurst, there's your pass rusher defensive tackle. And then look for a guy that's excellent at stopping the run, like a Danny Shelton. And then, you know, recalculate that, recalibrate it, and like look in the draft for just specific guys that can be a star in that role.
I think it'd be a smart way of doing it. They just want to get by, invest slightly more in edge, and see how it works out. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they treat the defensive tackle room. But yeah, just bet on upside. Taven Bryan, if you're one that I was going to say seems most likely to be that's my guy sort of thing, Taven Bryan's the one for me.
Looking at the wide receiver position, because in the Twitter space we were in, we were talking about a scenario where they trade down for Jamison Williams potentially, because I don't think him at 13 is a legitimate opportunity right now. Maybe something's changed if his medical's clear or whatnot. We talked about adding maybe a DJ Chark or a Christian Kirk in free agency, but if they double dipped with adding two veterans to the mix with DPJ and Schwartz and potentially a draft pick, some of these wide receivers you mentioned, you only mentioned two, but I like the intrigue behind bringing these guys in as a potential second veteran that they add to the room. Jamison Crowder, who I think was with the Jets previously, and then Noah Brown, former Ohio State Buckeye, was buried in a room in Dallas. Who would you be more inclined to go after?
So I think it depends who that first guy is. If the first guy is a Russell Gage, a Christian Kirk, there is no point touching Crowder. Crowder is very much a slot guy. He could play a little bit out, but you more or less stick him in the slot. So if you bring someone in that plays inside out, Gage, your Kirk, any of those sort of guys, you can't touch Crowder. But if you want some experienced veteran, that works. Noah Brown, I think, is just a really interesting one. There's just upside with the guy of bring him in and see what happens. There's two other guys that if you want, one's a body for camp that actually played okay in limited snaps last year. It's Laquan Treadwell. I didn't feel brave enough to put him in the article, I told you, just because I knew exactly what would happen. People will read that and then just stop reading the piece. And the other one's Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson could be a dude they go, let's just run the tires on this, because if you want someone in the room that's going to show these young guys how you go and be a deep threat, get someone who's been a deep threat over a long career and done it several different teams. So that could be an interesting one as sort of a second option. If you bring in Deshaun Jackson, you probably don't want, with the injury concern, to then draft Jamison Williams. But if you're not going the Jamison Williams route, hey, I quite like that as a second sort of punt of a D-Jax, and just go, right, get deep, teach these guys how to get deep. 1 year, 2 million, and let's see what happens. No, I think you can bring in some bodies, but I still love the Chark and Gage double. Give me that, and then we don't have to look at any of these cheap guys at wide receiver. Get me two really promising, semi sort of young guys.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. Definitely very interesting to see how they're going to attack this wide receiver position in free agency. For those that want to go and read it, we don't want to go through every position group here on this article because we want people to go read the article. The DawgLand.com.
I'll do one more.
Okay.
Do go read the article on the DawgLand.
Yes.
I'll do one more. Possibly the cheapest guy on the list, but I think would be a really, really shrewd signing.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Mr. AFC North, Josh Bynes?
That is the man. I just think it'd be a great ad for the team. And if they do want to try and believe in Phillips to go out and start, bring in a guy that I would be completely fine if you said he's our Mike for the entire season. I'm happy with that. Just bring him in and let him go. The dude knows how to play. He has not been with the Steelers yet, but he's been with every other AFC North team. And the guy just consistently produces. You're going to need someone in there. You need a Mike. You don't need a Will. You don't need a Sam. You need a Mike. And this guy is a Mike. So, no, I think it'd be a really, really nice ad.
It actually would be. And I like that idea to get somebody in here to maybe push Jacob Phillips, but also you have him as an insurance policy if Phillips can't stay healthy, which has definitely been the flaw so far for his first couple of seasons. He's definitely consistent and productive everywhere he's been in the league. Definitely be an under the radar signing that I don't think people would talk about. But then once the season started, if Bynes had to play and could make a contribution to this defense, it would definitely pay off.
That's it for me. Go read the article and let me know your dudes your guys that you like. That just didn't even sound right when I said it again. But yeah, there's going to be guys where you're just banging for some under the table person. Obviously, I'm not including any restricted free agents, anyone that's an exclusive rights free agents. These are pure unrestricted. And I had it was Hiram saying, hey, we're not going to sign a free agent that's not a wide receiver, an edge, or a defensive tackle this offseason. That's not true. We are going to sign guys in lots of different positions. Maybe not as many as I listed. I'm not saying we'd sign someone absolute everywhere. I would. But yeah, there's dudes going to get added. They'll add probably a tight end, especially if they get rid of one of Njoku and Hooper. They're not going to go into the draft with two tight ends on the roster. So, look for more guys coming in. Keep an eye out. Some are going to wait until post-draft because if you're that dude battling for a roster spot, why sign for a team before the draft? Because they might draft two guys and then you're stuck in their roster and you can ask to be cut and they might agree to it. The same way Dorsey did with Brashard Perriman, but there's no guarantee you actually get released.
Definitely. It's definitely something to keep in mind as the offseason wanes on. Definitely go check out the article at the DawgLand.com. Jack, before we go, I almost forgot. They announced the international games today. The NFL did. And you have the Jaguars, of course, coming back to London. It's only a matter of time, I feel like, before maybe Tony Khan announces that, not Tony Khan, Shad Khan. Tony Khan is his son, runs AEW. That's why I'm on my brain. Jacksonville maybe packing up and moving to London. We don't ever know if that's even remotely possibility. I know the league wants to. The New Orleans Saints are coming to London, which will be interesting because then you'll get to see Jameis Winston potentially live and in person. And the Green Bay Packers, which could be with Aaron Rodgers, could be without Aaron Rodgers. But those are the three teams that will be hosting games in London. And checking the schedule, there's no chance the Browns are coming to London in 2022. Jack, any of those games potentially, we don't know the opponents yet, but any of those teams pique your interest of traveling to check out the game?
Yeah, last time I saw Jameis Winston, I think he threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter. So it's certainly exciting. Not at the moment, because you're potentially talking about Jordan Love, Jameis Winston, and Trevor Lawrence. It's hardly the most tasty selection of quarterbacks that you could ever see. But no, it's one that I'll probably have a day out with some mates, and we'll just go and have a laugh. So we'll keep an eye out. There's a good chance I'll be in America while some of it's going on because I'm off to Florida later this year. So hoping I can get the Browns over there.
Oh, you definitely can. Just search Browns backer bars. You'll find one in Florida.
Oh, no, I meant an actual Browns game in Florida because we're playing. No, in my luck, the Bucks will be...
The Bucks are in Cleveland, but Miami is in Miami. So
yeah, the Bucks will be at Cleveland while I'm in Florida.
Probably.
You just know that sort of stuff's bound to happen.
That'll be your luck. They also announced that the first ever regular season game in Germany will be taking place, and Tampa Bay will be hosting that game. The Browns won't be going there either because Tampa is coming to Cleveland, like you said. And the Arizona Cardinals will be playing the first game, NFL's first game in Mexico since 2019. Hopefully, Estadio Azteca is in much better shape than the last time because that field was atrocious the last time they played on that field. So hopefully it's a lot better this go around. But I'm excited to see they have a game in Germany, which is very intriguing. They're obviously looking to broaden more internationally, and the fact that they are going to another country, Germany, who has, they had their football leagues out there. They had a player, I forget his name. He played for Minnesota, got drafted from Germany. I think it was Bo Ringer. Because I wanted the Browns.
He went to the Pro Bowl because the German fans just went out, and it shows how stupid the Pro Bowl is. German fans got him to the Pro Bowl just because they absolutely went hell for leather and went out and voted for him. It was a massive following. If you, it's back when he was at the Giants. People get upset because it's OBJ, but just type in OBJ Germany into YouTube. It's mental. He's running down the street, and there is just people chasing him just to see OBJ, and it's like. It's mad, like the hype out there. So really good to see. In terms of Jacksonville potentially moving to the UK, won't happen under this CBA because there's not the rights to do it. One of the bigger issues will be either the UK government needs to make it tax exempt because players earn money over here. At the moment, they do that for American teams coming over, but they would have to do it for a permanent basis. Or what's going to happen is team will actually live on the East Coast and they'll fly in for the games, which is probably the more likely of the two.
That makes sense. And they can stay in Florida and collect tax-free money in the States. So that could probably be Yeah. So, yeah, definitely intriguing. Looking forward to seeing how this game in Germany goes. Hopefully it leads to more. I mean, I'm a fan of the international games. I know some people don't like the time difference. I think the games are like 9 a.m. sometimes over here. But I don't mind it. Give me football 12 hours a day if that's the case. I'll take it all day, every day. Jack, as we wrap things up, it's a good episode. Plug your Twitter, plug everything you got going on, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, free agency is coming up. So loads of big contracts and things coming up. So follow me on Twitter at Jack Duffin, DUFFIN. A reminder, when contracts come out, it usually takes about 2 days for the actual important stuff of the contract to come out. So I know what people will be tweeting me as soon as like an announcement's made, as if I've got I'm sat there in Barry's office, signing off on these deals personally. Yeah, when the numbers are out, I'll do some YouTube videos and stuff, and I'll pump them all. But no, where can people find you, buddy?
At Jack McCurry 08. I dropped an article Monday over the DawgLand. It's the first time I've written something in a while, but the title of it is What Jackson's Thinking. Just shared my thoughts on some of the recent Browns news, and definitely go check that out at the DawgLand.com, as well as Jack's work, the offseason roster deep dive that we covered here the last couple of months, his recent article that's just called 16 free agents under $5 million the Browns could sign. So definitely go check that out. Check out all our work over at the DawgLand.com. We thank you guys for listening. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at the DawgLand. And until next time, Browns fans, as always, go Browns.
Go Browns.